agree with it. Some of you out there disagree with it. But we're going to talk about it this morning with a man that has wrestled in Memphis that is going to be somewhat controversial, that is going to have some things to say about wrestling that some of you avid wrestling fans may not like to hear. But we're going to get into it. His name is Mario Boyette. He's known in wrestling as Mario Galento. He's 59 years old. Mario is sitting here in the booth with me. And did you wrestle in the programs ever in Memphis, Mario?
Yes, I've wrestled quite a few matches here in the past. George and incident, I'll be 59 in June. Okay. Okay.
Now you've been calling me for over a period of months and
yes,
wanting to come on the program and wanting us to talk about wrestling, and I guess you've been calling me because you've heard some of the things that I have said about wrestling.
Yes, I have. I heard you discuss things about wrestling. I want to discuss it back with you, and why that I figured that you discussed it like you did.
Well, now I have contended that I think wrestling is mostly show. People ask why we don't devote more space to it in the paper, why I don't devote more time to it here on the radio program, and I say that this is a sports show. It's not a show of anything else, and which is why we don't do a lot of talking about roller derby and wrestling. I want to talk sports on this program, and I don't personally believe that wrestling as we see it today now is sport. I think the NCAA wrestling that we've seen on television at the colleges is sport, and people come out to see it, and it's a great event. But I don't believe the Monday night programs as we see it is really a sport.
You mean you don't think it's really on the level? I mean, actually, you see, there's no such a thing as being fake or phony as long as you're doing what you're told by your boss man, such as a promoter, wrestling promoter.
What do you mean doing it what you're told?
Well, if you go into the ring with some of the guys that we know naturally can't afford to get beat because they never go anywhere else, like the Texas, Oklahoma, and places where they really wrestle, and if you have to actually, what we call doing a job for those guys is to put them over at a certain time and a certain length of time. And, of course, I had a wrestling school here and was advised to close the school.
Now, wait a minute. Are you telling me that wrestling on Monday nights here is phony?
I didn't say I said as long as you do what you are told by the promoter, you're not doing a phony job yourself. You're doing what you're told.
But,
so you it's not a contest.
But, for example, yes, what does a promoter tell you to do?
He tells you when to finish and who to put over. If you don't, then you're fired immediately.
What do you mean, who to put over and who to finish?
Well, you know, the winners and everything. Of course, everybody. Did you ever see something? Let me ask you a question now. Did you ever see something you just really loved to look at and really happened and was happy about it but didn't believe it after it happened? Now, then, that answers your question.
Well, are you telling me that the matches are predetermined before they...
I'm saying that all of the matches in this particular territory here is a syndicate-operated thing, and you do what you're told. And some of the wrestlers, if I was allowed to mention their names, I'll tell you who couldn't wrestle, and I have offered to back it up with $1,000 because I have a wrestling school here.
Why? But are you...
I want to tell you why, George, if you don't mind.
First of all, as I understand it, you're blacklisted. Is that right? You can't wrestle.
I am barred from all 37 states because I answered a challenge in Jackson, Tennessee on television. My wife and I drove up, come in from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I went down and said $500 to the winner of a contest on TV. Well, I went down there. They had the police, the high sheriff. They had everybody out there, and the sheriff was very nice to me. And he told me, he said, Mario, he said, why are you down here causing all the disturbance? I said, I'm not. I'm answering a challenge. He said, you know, this is figured out 2 or 3 weeks ahead. I said, well, this one wasn't. That's what all the trouble's about.
What was figured out 2 or 3 weeks ahead?
We're talking about the finishes of who was going to beat who, you know, and everything like that. And if you don't notice, I think you have. Some of the guys, so-called wrestlers, after they wrestle about 2 minutes and you get him on the TV for an interview, he's so blowed up, you know what I mean? He can't hear him talk. I heard one here a while back, he'd wrestle 2 minutes, and he got out there and he says, boy, I'll tell you one thing. If they'd have turned me loose out there, I'd have done this and done that. I felt sorry for him. If they'd turned him loose, he'd have fell dead. You see, you got to stay in good condition. I could mention some boys here in Memphis that are wrestlers and are in good condition, and they can answer the same thing. Now, in my school, George... Wait a minute.
Let's get away from the commercial about the school first.
No, I'm not doing that. See, I'm not running the school anymore. I want to tell you what...
All right, but I want to ask you something else. I brought up the point that you were blacklisted. Are you saying that wrestling is
I was blacklisted after
a show because you're blacklisted and not Mario Galento have a vendetta going?
I say that the wrestling, when you go in there to contest a man, and if you do beat a man that you're not supposed to beat, that you're finished. All they have to do, the promoters, pick up the phone, call their commissioners, and they call them all long distance all over the country, which my name, Buddy, is all over everywhere. You can look at me. I'm a main liner on the... And my wife, they also blacklisted my wife because she was married to me. And my wife is a wrestler, which is... of course, you'll see later on there's going to be...
And you say you cannot wrestle in 37 states.
That's right.
But you can wrestle in 13.
I can wrestle in the others. And,
well, do you do it?
Florida. No, I don't want to wrestle in the states. It's just the idea of taking my rights and my privilege away from me, because I like to see...
Why haven't you gone to court?
I am. That's what I was going to tell you. It's in court. I was in Nashville a while back up at the State House, and, of course, I had my attorney with me there, and I had the court recorder. Everything's recorded, and I am going into court. They said mine was a federal case, and hers was a civil case, because you can't take her rights away. She wants to wrestle. You see, I don't want to wrestle. A year ago, last month, I had a heart attack just after I took a severe beating on a television show, a certain station here, from a bunch of the boys that had suckered me in there, supposedly to do a program. And after I got into the ring, I was told by the promoters here to go on in, because a certain guy was leaving. We're going to need a program to get the people back. After I got in there, all of them, there were 7 of them all total, took me down and tried to kill me and put me in the hospital. They put 22 stitches in my head. I didn't even know what was going on until I was already hurt real bad.
All right, we've had someone waiting on the line. 725-1430 is the number to call. Let me pick up this call. We Radio Sports Line, you're on the air.
Yes, I would like to ask the gentleman something, please, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
In other words, what you're trying to tell us is that this is a showmanship.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I believe you, because one time I was watching TV, and I'm not a wrestling fan, and I was watching TV, and the man looked like he was being killed, and they was hitting him with a chair and everything, and I ran to the phone and called the Memphis police and asked them to go, please, to the TV station and stop before the man was murdered.
Yes, ma'am.
And I was laughed at. Then I called the TV station and I told them, for God's sake, stop the murder on TV. And I was laughed at. And the woman on the switchboard at the TV station right here in town,
yes, ma'am,
this was her remarks. Lady, don't you know that is not anybody being hurt?
Well, if you think you're laughed at now, you should be at the matches sometimes, see them laugh at you if they get in the dressing room.
Well, I know that, because then I went to work for a doctor who was a wrestling match doctor at that time.
Yes, ma'am.
And they would come up there to the office, you know. But it just didn't make sense. I really thought the men had gotten mad, and I thought, God, please get the police over there before somebody gets hurt. And so that's what convinced me, and this was just recently on TV. That's what convinced me that there was not a real fight, because if I were to call the police and tell them that there was a knockdown, drag-out fight on something else, they would immediately run over there and put a stop to it.
Well, that's right. Well, I was at the matches a few weeks ago. I'm not going to say who was wrestling. And most policemen they've had down there is when my wife and I went to the matches, and there was 2 guys that I wanted to get a hold of real bad.
Well, you can say who was wrestling. You can say it. Who?
Jerry Lawler and Jerry Jarrett were wrestling each other. And, of course, I was the one that put up the $1,000. I could beat them both in 30 minutes or less time, and I added a few more to it. And now, you see, that wasn't scheduled. That wasn't on the books. And so they had 22 extra policemen there. They were covered all over the building. Because when you're down there for business, instead of a showmanship, they have to have a police. Well, and I was told by one of the policemen while we were at it, which they already know up in town anyway, that if I went into the ring or even started in the ring, they're supposed to shoot me in the back. And I said, you mean to tell me that you'd shoot a man unarmed man in the back? He said, I have orders from one of the promoters for you not to get to the ring if you start. And I asked him, I said, why? He said, well, your hands are legal weapons. I said, good, you don't have to shoot neither one of them then, because neither one of their hands are not legal weapons.
Well, now, I'm just an average housewife watching on TV with a man picking up a chair, and he runs in to hit this guy, and as I say, as far as I'm concerned, here is a battle going on TV that is, that I thought, oh, boy, they've gotten out of hand. Please get the police there before somebody in the audience gets
there. They're there, police are there, laughing with everybody else.
Well, do you not tell me? I got laughed at there, and then I went to the phone, called the station, and I said, please do something quick. Well, to me, then, I'll never watch wrestling again, because if it's no more sport than that,
Well, ladies, it's not a contest. It's not a sport. It's a showman thing down there right now. And, of course, we have
I don't like showman things. I like sports.
I like the real thing. I
watch somebody. I don't mean I want to watch anybody being beat up or anything like that, but I feel like it's just like the astronauts. If they go up to the moon and they get left up there, that's what their business. They chose that.
Well, I think it should be a contest.
If he gets hurt, that's his business. He chose that profession.
Well, you can't blame the wrestlers, though, ma'am. That comes from the promoters and everything. It's a syndicate-operated thing. If you don't do what you're told, you're fired. And of course, at my house, my wife and my kids can tell you this. Right after this incident, you might have seen them beating me up on television.
No, I didn't. That was my first. I turned TV on, and I thought we had completely had to start having a riot. And if I would see a riot on the corner, I'd call the police.
Well, what happened here?
All right, now let me interrupt. We're running long. We're going to have to cut this off, okay?
Okay, but I just want to tell you that experience.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mario, for how many years did you wrestle?
I've been wrestling I started wrestling my first matches about 40 years ago, just breaking into the business. And, of course, the first 3 months I was in the business, I got my teeth kicked out, and they're still out, some of them, if you want to see how I mean. I had cauliflower ears, and I got about 300 stitches in my head. Now, I delivered some of them, too, but in the meantime, I was getting in shape, in condition to take on those people. But now, at that time, wrestling was different from it is now. I don't say there wasn't showmanship. There's always been. But it was rougher and tougher, and you had to be in condition to get into business. You had to know some wrestling. You see, all you got to do now is bleach your hair and get you a pair of tights and grow your hair out and jump up on that microphone and bark about 5 times like you're preaching on a country stump. And they say, hey, we better use this boy. And what makes me hot is to walk into the dressing room, and one of the guys, some of the kinfolks, and this is a kinfolks deal from here all the way to Mobile, Alabama, and you've got to wrestle them. They've got to win or you can't go. And they tell you, hey, Johnny, we'll just call the name. They come by and say, let's get old Johnny over tonight because he's back next week. Naturally, because he's not going anywhere else. He's here, he owns it, he is part of it. And they say, let's get him over about 2 minutes. He's sick. Here I am, I'm worked out, I'm in good shape, and I want to go get a good workout. But he don't feel good.
Why can't professional wrestlers, what is a guy, let's say, who wrestles in college, and surely if you've been involved in wrestling, you've seen at least on television the NCAA wrestling championships, and there's no showmanship whatsoever. They get out there and they wrestle, and yet in some parts of the country, in Iowa and Oklahoma and Nebraska, they fill basketball arenas with 15,000 people to see a wrestling match. So it's obviously something to it. I understand at Auburn, Alabama, same thing. They've got a good wrestling program down there now. Why can't professional wrestling be like, say, professional football is to college football? It's just an extenuation of the game.
Excuse me, George, there's a wrestling coach, Billy Wicks, who has the amateur wrestling school in Germantown. Now, he's got a bunch of boys out there that he hasn't had too long, just like I've got a few names wrote down here. I'll read you if you'd like. It can beat all these guys I was just talking about real easy. And without any, because they have the wrestling ability.
Well, where do they go to make a living?
These boys that we're speaking of wrestling, they have jobs. They like to wrestle, like in Oklahoma and Texas, and people like Danny Hodge, who is a wrestler, and Billy Wicks, who is a wrestler. He has a job, and he's supposed to have done the same thing I did on TV one time. He was asked by the promoters to go in and do this same thing, to jump in and is Billy Wicks blacklisted now? I don't think he's not blacklisted, but he'd be just as well off because the places they send him is in little bitty towns, and they don't let guys like that have a belt on them. If you'll notice, the one that wears the belt are helpless as a baby because they do what they're told. You get the belt on a good tough man, he might not want to give it up. That'd mess up a 6-week program they're trying to do here.
All right, let's get back to phone calls on line 1. We Radio, you're on the air.
I'm here to speak to Mario, Mr. Clinton.
Go ahead.
Yes. Okay, Mr. Galento, I just wanted to ask a question. Jackie Fargo was heard about 8 weeks ago on Studio Wrestling by a wrestler here in Memphis. And for those last 8 weeks, he's supposedly been in the hospital. And I, for one, know that he's been wrestling in Nashville for 8 solid weeks as the headliner.
Yes, sir.
I'm just wondering, do the people really think that we're that gullible that we would just believe
Well, I'd like to answer that question. The place is full every week, and I say there's good business and show business. And, of course, now, you know that where he was. I don't have to answer that question.
Right.
If he wasn't there, he was with his, you want to call it, in Atlanta, Georgia. And probably with wherever the Garvin boys is. They're not here right now. One of the Garvin boys are really tough. I like to say one thing, straighten everybody else out on that. The Garvins are not brothers. They're just one. see that on there either.
Right.
And there's a list of them right here in this part of the country to shake your teeth out if you know who they was, that follows them wherever they go. You know, they're not only funny boys in the ring, they're funny out of the ring.
Right. Well, let me ask you, in different sections like Birmingham, Atlanta, Nashville, and Memphis, those are the big southern towns.
Yeah.
A different person will go from town to town. He's a good guy in one town, a bad guy in another.
That's right. And they have world champions in every state.
Right.
Because there's a lot of world champions right now. Yeah.
All right, we got to get to another call.
Okay.
We Radio Sports Line, you're on the air.
Yes, Mr. Galento?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, let me ask you, are you the one that has the earring in your ear?
He is.
Well,
yes.
we watched wrestling when we were children.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you trying to tell us that your matches were predetermined, too?
They were rougher, predetermined, and all of them. Because, as I say, anytime you're told by your boss what to do, if you have a job and your boss tells you, when you answer the phone, say, I'm not in, if he's there, what are you going to tell him?
Well, wait a minute. Now, let's get at this. When you were wrestling, Mario, here, you fought in matches then, or wrestling matches, where you knew before you got in the ring who was going to win.
Oh, definitely, yes.
That's what I was wanting to get that straight.
Yes, ma'am. Some of them are rougher than others, you admit that. And they've quit doing what you call hard ways. That's hitting you side of the head between the eyes. And there has been several matches where you go in and wrestle your first fall, determine who is the best and who is the toughest, and then you actually work your other two. Or either get fired. You see, I have a family to raise, and I have to take orders from my boss, who is the promoters, and then the commissioners backs them up, as I told you all.
Well, they're not your boss anymore.
No, that's right. No, but they're not my boss anymore because they called up the commissioners and had me fired and said, hey, this boy won't listen. Let's get him out of here.
But did you ever get mad when you were wrestling?
Yes, ma'am. I've been mad a few times, but if you're in good condition and you know what you can do, you know your ability, you can play with a lot of these kids who is being played with here now and not get hurt and don't have to get mad because you know if you want to, you can beat them anytime you get ready.
Well, that's what I mean. Did you ever get mad and just whoop one?
No, I did. That's why I'm out this time. I went down to Batesville, Mississippi last summer and whipped two, to tell you the truth. I wasn't even booked down there, and I had to put up a $600 bond to get out. And as a matter of fact, it was three of them. It was the manager and two of the wrestlers.
Well, were you the only one that's ever been banned from wrestling?
No, ma'am. I travel the United States over. Most of the people are 95% of all the people that are banned from wrestling in the commission is down in the state of Tennessee or in Mobile, Alabama. You hardly ever see anybody from Texas, Oklahoma, or up in Nebraska or any of those
You tell me that it's completely, totally on the up and up in the other states?
No, I didn't say that.
Okay.
I say, though, that if you do get hot and wrestle somebody and beat them, they don't kick you out. They may give you a little jacking up and tell you kind of, just,
play the rules.
Well, that's what I mean. You don't actually play the rules, but anyhow, if you beat the man you're not supposed to, you foul up a good long program.
Are the matches rehearsed before they're on?
No, ma'am, you don't have to rehearse a match. You can, if you know who's going to beat you and with what.
No.
Then, seriously, let me finish.
What do you mean with what?
Well, with what hoop they're going to use. Because there's some holds used here in Memphis it's impossible.
Yeah.
And to beat anybody with. And,
Such as?
Such as the side straddle about throwing a man in you throw a man in the turnbuckle, you can't throw him in. You can't drop kick a man. You can't body slam him if you don't want to. All you got to do is sit down in his hand. And just throwing him into the rope, and then you coming off and jumping the straddle of him and holding him down. That's not a wrestling hold. Of course, our champion, used it, and he's a great wrestler, which incidentally, I don't understand what he's doing here unless he have an interest in this. He must have an interest in it. I'm talking about Luther.
Now, whenever they give those drop kicks, you tell me that man doesn't know that he's going to get a drop kick at that.
There wouldn't be no way to drop kick him if the man wanted to get out of the way. You'd just have to stand there. Even yourself, he couldn't even hit you. All you do is just step aside.
You mean a drop kick is really not a wrestling...
No, a drop kick's not wrestling at all.
What about whenever they pull them off the top rope and they tumble them over? Don't they get set for that?
Well, you have to. You have to get set for most anything. It's just like in making a movie. Which incidentally, I'm making a movie. I'm going to tell you that a little later on.
Whenever they're wrestling, do they whisper, say, now let's get them
No, you don't.
Well,
if you don't get them up out of the seats like you should, well, then you're jacked up pretty heavy and you get back. So they say, hey, look at that old fat woman. You see that over in the right-hand corner raising all that cane, buddy? Let's get with her because she's bringing as many people here as we are.
All right, we got to cut it off. We got to take a commercial break. Peter, 725-1430 is the number to call, and I'm talking with Mario Galento, who used to wrestle in this area and who claims he's been blacklisted because he failed to be a part of the show, and by that I mean he failed to follow the orders. This is what Mario alleges, that who would win matches and who would lose matches. Before we went on the air, Mario was telling me something to back up his claims, is that no matter how many people wrestle on a program, the matches all seem to end at the same time. You want to expound on that a little bit?
Well, I'll just ask you if you had noticed that. You can have 8
No,
men.
because I hadn't been.
You know, I said, well, this lady called in a little while ago. She could probably, if she'd been to the matches there. If you have 8 men, 12 men, or 18, you know, and sometimes they have a big night. They had 32 one night. And the news is always called in. They told me, I don't know about this, about the main event before it even started. It had to be if it lasted 10:30. And they always threw it about 10:15. I don't care if it's 12, 15, 25, or 30 or 32 wrestlers. And people are beginning to ask me. I have to answer these questions. Is why aren't you wrestling? And when are you going to be back? And it's embarrassing as it can be. And my students, I have a television up in the school I was in, and they watch the matching, and they ask me if this is real and that's real. And after they wrestle and they learn how to wrestle, then they know that if I tell them, yes, this is real, that I'm a liar. And, of course, I can't tell them yes because it's not true. It's not wrestling, the things that they see on television. And I got them all in there one time. For instance, I said, watch TV now. I'm going to give you all $1 a piece for each wrestling holt you see. And they come running there. They're real excited, and nobody made $1. Not one. Somebody's going in their tights after this. They're turned around.
What is a hole and what isn't? Like, is a half Nelson a hole?
Half Nelson, quarter Nelson, grapevines, and you have the leg grapevines and front face locks and things like. You don't see this. I have a brochure coming out. I'll give you one of 36 different holts that are wrestling holts.
Are those the holes that are used in college wrestling?
Yes. Some of them are not allowed in college because it's breaking holes, since they don't use it in amateur in college either. But it's a good hooking, called a hooker. To put reverse death lock with a back face lock. That's one of the holds I give.
Sounds menacing.
I give anybody, like I say, the $100 in free training that can break them after they are applied.
All right, let's get back to calls, Mario, on line 1. We Radio, you're on the air.
George?
Yeah.
I'd like to document everything that Mr. Galento is saying. I know he's not a fake because, unless I'm mistaken, I saw one of his unadvertised matches last Saturday night at a local restaurant. Wasn't that right, Mr. Galento?
That's correct.
Right, and
that's right.
You were winning that one pretty good.
Well, there was nobody calling a shot from that. The guy had been looking for me for 3 weeks, and he found me.
But what happened?
You noticed my wife, too, huh?
What happened? How'd that start? It wasn't advertised or anything. Nobody paid or anything.
No, he had run up a big bill, and I used to be a bouncer at the club a few months ago, and I collected it for the man, and he wanted to know where the guy was with the earring. He kept coming back, said, I'm looking for him. So my wife and I come back, and he and his wife and daughter looked for us for 3 weeks, and they found us. You did see that. That should have been filmed, huh?
Well, I saw it. I sort of stayed inside and watched, because, I didn't want to get in the middle of it, but I sure saw it.
In other words, you seen one that wasn't rehearsed.
Well, I know that wasn't rehearsed.
Well,
I admit, boy.
I thank you. I sure do thank you, and I want to tell the gentleman that owns the big club that I'm very sorry. He was looking for me, and he found me. Of course, I understand the lady fell down and broke her leg that my wife got hold of.
Okay, let's...
It was really good, and I enjoyed it.
Let's get to another call.
Thank you.
We Radio Sports Line, you're on the air.
Okay, how you doing?
All right.
I'd like to talk to Mr. Galento.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm enjoying the program so much. You're a wonderful guest.
Thank you, ma'am.
I want to ask you, do you have any trouble with the spectators?
Ma'am, my biggest trouble of all wrestlers is playing the bad parts of the spectators. I have
were you the villain, Mario?
Yes, I was for a while, and then I turned to be able to be the good boss after I got my head cracked with bottles, and, of course, my arms and legs. I've got over 400 stitches in my body from knife wounds and bottle wounds and things. My arm was almost cut off from my legs from getting people excited, and I was cut through the ropes 2 different times.
Oh, well, that's what I wondered about. The referee, Sam, I can't think of his last name. What's his last name?
Sam Platani is a great wrestler and has a great wrestling record.
Yeah, well, I know him.
Yes,
and he was telling me about a little old lady in tennis shoes that met him outside after a match and grabbed him by the shirt and was shaking his shirt saying, why didn't you see what was going on? And he just tore his shirt off.
Well, they had a referee a while back that seen what was going on, and he got fired down there, so maybe, I don't know, Sam may be listening.
Well,
Sam
got his back broken wrestling, didn't he?
Who?
Sam.
Well, he used to wrestle.
Yes, ma'am. He had a great background from Olympic wrestling, college wrestling, and amateur wrestling. He's also a judo man and can beat 2/3 of the people that comes down. As a matter of fact, he can beat anybody that comes down besides Mr. Fayez right now.
Is that
right? Fayez is a great wrestler.
He is a great wrestler. He's a great athlete and a great wrestler. And I just can't understand, just like I said a while ago, I can't understand him 5 years ago of him wrestling the caliber of men that he is wrestling now, making them look good. Because he's a great artist. He puts holds on himself for them. And they don't even know what they've got. Of course, he gets loose when he gets ready. And, of course, I understand it right now. And, of course, he has to, promote himself, of course, in the business. We can't blame him for that. But he is a fine wrestler.
Yes, he is. Well, I'm enjoying the program so much. Come back up again soon.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right, 725-1430 is the number to call. Mario.
Thank you.
We Radio, you're on the air.
Mario, please.
Go ahead.
Mario?
Yeah.
I didn't see it in the papers, but who did those infernos turn out to be when they unmasked them?
It's supposed to have been one of those guys. Supposed to have been Wild Red Berry's son, which I didn't really recognize him. He evidently had went to wrestling since I had the beard and everything. It's hard to recognize a guy with the beard. And Wild Red Berry was a great showman, but he, you know what I mean. He had a big, good mouth, and he was a well-educated man, and he knew how to keep the belt on a long time without having to wrestle for it.
Yeah. Who was the other one?
They never did tell who the other was. They just pulled it off.
I thought the paper said they was going to unmask him down there.
No, just one. They just took it off for one.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And it was Rick Barry, huh?
They said it was Wild Red Berry's son.
Yes, what I mean.
I thought you said Rick Barry. I thought you were talking about a basketball player. Okay.
You don't know who the other one was?
No, sir, I sure don't.
I didn't know who the first one was after you told me.
I didn't either. I
am so glad to hear you on We Radio.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think you're a marvelous gentleman.
Thank you, ma'am.
You have no idea who you're talking to, but I'm going to tell you. Lynn takes from you now, takes lessons from you.
Yes, ma'am.
And Red, I think, stopped by there and talked to you last night or the night before.
The night before, yes, ma'am.
That's right. And I was just really surprised to hear you on the radio, but I'm so proud, and I'm so proud of you, and you're a marvelous guy.
All right, we've got to take a commercial break.
Well, you keep up the good
Thank
work.
You.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
There's a former wrestler around this area who's had some rather candid remarks to say about wrestling. 725-1430 is the number to call. And let's get back to calls right now on line one. We Radio, you're on the air.
Yes, is Mario still there?
Yes, Mario is right here. He's going to be here. He's like country music in Nashville. He's going to be here a long time.
Okay. I wanted to ask whatever happened to two guys and what are they doing now?
Yeah.
Sputnik Monroe and Al Spider Galento.
Well, Al Spider Galento is in Pensacola, Florida, and he's out of wrestling right now. And Sputnik is somewhere in the...
Spider Galento for a while was working in the security department in Memphis State, as I know.
He sure was. And Sputnik is somewhere doing whatever he's told. I think he's down in Tampa, Florida.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
We Radio, you're on the air. 725-1430 is the number to call, and we have one open line. You're on.
Let's speak to Mario, please.
Yes, this is Mario speaking.
Yes, I'd like to clarify a couple of statements that
yes, sir.
You've made.
Mm-hmm.
You admit that the promoters dictate the winner and the loser.
Yes.
And you also admit that the punches and throwing the chairs are fake. Yet you issue these challenges to certain wrestlers that you can beat them in 10 minutes and less than 10 minutes. Well, what do you mean that you can beat them in a real fight?
I mean, in a contest, in a wrestling match.
Well,
not this show.
Will the punches be fake?
Pardon me?
Will the punches be fake?
No. If I wrestle him, I'm not going to punch him. I'm going to wrestle him. You see, when I'm speaking, of course, if I punch him.
When you're in the ring, you admitted that the throwing of the chairs and some of the holds are fake. Well, how do you clarify the fact that you could beat him in less than 10 minutes? What kind of match is any different than the next guy?
Well, what's the difference? I'm speaking of contesting, not following orders is what I'm speaking of. I'm speaking of wrestling.
The punches are not real, and
well, the punches are real, but you know yourself, if you watch a man, just like Mr. Lapita said a while ago, if you go back and hit a man in the nose, I don't care who you are, you're going to knock his nose off and knock him down, moron. You just don't stand there and punch and can't knock him off his feet. A while ago, I heard a gentleman make a remark. He said, listen, anytime a man can throw a punch like they do out there and miss a guy 6 inches and knock him down, if he's that tough, I don't want to even be in the ring with him.
Right. Well,
because if he did connect, he would kill you.
But you're still admitting that it wouldn't be... Everything would not be on the up and up. You know, you said challenge you can beat the man.
Yes, I say I can beat the man. I said I'd bet $1,000 I could be in one of the 5 in the mention if I'm allowed to.
But yet, part of the
I'm speaking of
fake.
It wouldn't be any fake of me putting up $1,000, no, sir.
No, but part of the actual fight would be fake.
Not if I take him in a contest.
Oh,
You don't know the difference in a show and a contest. Contest is to get you back. I mean, the show is to get you back, and the contest is to beat your opponent.
Well, I sort of read them as the same, but I understand what you're saying. Well, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Let's get to another call. We Radio, you're on the air. 725-1430 is the number to call. Mario Galento is here.
Yeah, Mr. Galento?
Yes, sir.
You know, it's quite obvious, I think, everybody, that it's a show and that it's not wrestling. But,
yes, sir.
But authentic wrestling, as we know it, wouldn't draw 500 people.
Well, you're right.
And, I mean, these matches, they draw 8,000 and 9,000. And, I mean, after all, no one wants to see two men in a hammerlock for 30 minutes doing nothing.
Why do they watch it in college, then, that many people?
How many watch it, George?
Oh, in Iowa and Oklahoma and those wrestling area states, they fill basketball arenas.
Yeah, 30,
I mean,
40,
for every match, every night, if they had it, you think they'd fill it?
Well, they wrestle, let's say that Oklahoma's wrestling team is going to go out during the wrestling season and wrestle once a week, and they fill it.
And they also televise it from Germany and everywhere else. It's a world hookup thing. It's just on what you're educated
to. Two men here in Memphis got in a ring and sat there in an authentic technical hammerlock or scissors.
You mean like Stringer Lewis, one of the greatest wrestlers in the world?
Right. I mean,
he drew more people than any man in the whole country.
Well, he drew it on his name.
No, he drew it on holding him there because he couldn't.
Well, he had to get a name, didn't he?
That's what he got his name with. Like Mr. Thez is a wrestler. Luke Thez is a wrestler. He got it on his name. But I say he's not wrestling here, and I'll tell him the same thing I'm telling you. He's playing.
But isn't it built as an exhibition and not a wrestling match?
It should be. If it's not, it should be. I mean, in New York and places like that, you have to put a wrestling show. Right. And around Madison Square Garden, places I've been in wrestling in Los Angeles, it's got to be a wrestling show. It's against the law to say wrestling match or a contest or contesting.
Whatever happened to old Wild Bill Longston?
He's in St. Louis. I seen him about 6 or 8 months ago, looking real good. He's doing fine.
I assume he's retired.
Yes, he was a fine man. He was a tough wrestler if it come to it.
I remember seeing him at the auditorium, I guess maybe 20 years ago. And, and he responsible for a hold that was actually outlawed or barred, the pile driver?
Well, there's no way to pile drive a man at all, because that's one of the things I'm glad you asked me. A man's got to slack bump him the atomic drop from behind. If you notice, the guy always jumps way up high as he can go and comes down supposedly on his tailbone on the guy's knee. That's impossible. You can't pile drive a man, and if he's dead weight, you can't even pick him up. So he's got to help you.
Didn't one of the wrestlers, I think it was years ago, die from a pile driver he put on someone? Was it Red Roach or someone like that?
No, I think that was
Doll Roach.
Doll Roach was here, but that wasn't called from a pile driver. That was brain hemorrhage.
He did die in the ring, didn't he?
Well, I don't know if he did or not. I know that some of them die in the ring from heart attacks, just like they do everywhere else, but it's not from the...
I thought some brain damage done through the pile driver.
Okay, let's get to another call. We Radio, 725-1430 is the number to call, and you're on the air. Hello?
Huh?
You're on.
Okay, I'd like to ask Mr. Galento something.
Yes, ma'am, speaking.
Well, I'd wonder if he could tell me who does he consider to be wrestlers in this territory?
Well, I can tell you who was wrestlers that's not in this territory. The Kangaroos were tough wrestlers, and Bobby Hart and Parenti were tough wrestlers, and Mr. Lou Thez is a tough wrestler, and Dennis Hall is a tough wrestler. Ken Lucas is a tough wrestler. Billy Wicks is one of the greatest and toughest in the business, and I can't think of any more right offhanded. It's even a wrestler at all, let alone being a tough one.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's get to another call. We Radio Sports Line, you're on the air.
Thank you. I want to speak to Mr. Galento.
Yes, sir. Speaking, sir.
Is the blood we see actually blood?
Yes, it's real blood. And it really comes out of the human being and out of this part, but how they get it now is another different thing, because when you see the man hit between the horns and he bleeds and drags all over, if you go up to where he's wrestling it the next night, you don't see any tape or nothing on his head. It's why they don't go to the hospital and have it sewed up. A wrestler is no different from anybody else. You know, you can't just say Shazam and my head's not hurting anymore, and it's not sewed up. I wrestled Billy Wicks here one time in Memphis and received 32 stitches. We wanted to see who was the toughest, who could take the most punishment, and I did. I busted him pretty good, but he busted me a little bit harder, because Billy Wicks was an Olympic wrestler, and he's an amateur wrestler, and he's a coach out at Germantown, and he has a team out there now, and he himself and Sam Platania, they may not wrestle these boys that I left out a while ago. Because it'd take me all day. It'd take a great big book to name who couldn't wrestle that comes here. I just named the ones that could. Now, they can wrestle.
But what actually causes these wounds? Is it the fist or some foreign object that slices it?
Well, it's some foreign object. Yeah, I can't advertise what it is because I don't want to, if I told you what it was, well, they'd think I was doing a commercial for some blade company or something.
Program, you've mentioned Billy Wicks quite a lot. You must have a lot of admiration for the gentleman.
Well, I tell you, I appreciate it because he is a wrestler and he's a tough one. He's a good man.
Let me ask you, what's happened to Johnny Walker?
Johnny Walker is welding, I think, somewhere.
Well, I thought that was something you drank.
He is underwater welder, and he's a fine man, and he is a tough wrestler.
Well, has he quit wrestling?
He just wrestles when he gets ready, and he's more money in welding. Because I wrestled, I'll tell you, for instance, just for a couple of things. I wrestled here about a year ago in Louisville, Kentucky, for these promoters out here in this town, in Nashville, and here together, the promoters, and I don't reckon here's to call the promoters' names. I don't think so. Everybody knows them. That's Mr. Burt Bates and Roy Wilson.
All right, let's get to the subject.
All right. Then I wrestled there for a full house of people. I'll tell you why he's not wrestling then. And I think it was 11,000 there, $3 to $5 a piece on a Sunday night. I wrestled here in Memphis to the same thing, to a turn away. And I got a check the following Wednesday for $150, and the boys underneath got a check for $50 a match. So that's why a lot of the good boys are not. They figure out a salary. If you're a good listener and you want to work for a salary, and wrestling is one of the greatest businesses in the world, to be able to get so far in debt you can never get out because people think you're a millionaire.
But Jerry Lawler inferred on this program he was making in excess of $100,000 a year.
Well,
that's the main inventors were.
Well, Jerry Lawler is not making $100,000 a year. He may make $100,000 in a lifetime. I'd say that for him, but he better be careful because the income tax people caught Monroe running his mouth, and they put him in pen. They had to go through all of his papers and make him check back and all of this. 20 grand and 50 grand he was making a night. He had to prove that he was lying about it, which is no way in the possible world for a man to make $100,000 in this territory because Jerry Jarrett doesn't make that, and he's part of it. He doesn't make that much.
All right, we've got to take a break. Thank you.
We Radio takes another step ahead to serve our...
Opinions expressed on We Radio do not necessarily reflect the opinions of WWE.
Well, Peters, we've got about another 4 minutes with Mario Galento. Mario, you've been teaching people how to wrestle, but if you're blacklisted, how can your wrestlers? Where do they go?
They don't, because I sent one into Mobile, Alabama here a while back that found out I was his coach, and he went out on the ranch of the promoters down there and worked out with their grandsons. One of them's a grandson, the other's his son. There's 3 brothers and the father that owns it. He worked out with them out on the ranch where nobody should have known anything at all about it. He beat all 3 of them and was fired and sent back to me, and his name is Bob Adcock. And he is a great amateur wrestler. He had amateur wrestling school here. He's a fine gentleman. He's 230 pounds. Has nothing but tough wrestling.
Well, what I'm saying is that why would anyone go to Mario Galento for lessons to become a professional wrestler if after they finish learning from you, they can't get employment?
That's easy to explain. Some of them wants to go out on a vacation because they've all got good jobs, and after I've told them that there wasn't any money right now, and there never has been, actually, if you're underneath in the wrestling business, they don't want to go out on the road and wrestle. They want to be able to protect themselves at all times. They learn self-defense, and they learn how to wrestle, and knowing how to wrestle is a great, great thing. You see, there's Billy Wicks now. He doesn't go out on the road and wrestle, and he is a wrestler. And I just tell them the truth about it. My boys ask me when they're watching TV, is that real? And I cannot tell one of my students, yes, that's real, because he know I'm a liar after he has learned to wrestle, after he really learns how to wrestle.
Well, why don't we see any black wrestlers?
That's a good question. I had several black students here that actually, if you want to know the truth, right, was refused license here in the state. Why, I don't know. I turned out some good heavyweights, some good tough ones, and the only thing I can tell you is this, because they came through my school, because they were interested. They were interested. And, of course, I wasn't blackballed up until the deal up in Jackson, Tennessee. Now, I'll tell you something. Tommy Gilbert is one of my students. And, of course, Tommy's making a lot of money, and he's a fine wrestler. And they are using Tommy. And but the black, I can't understand why.
Would Tommy tell it like it is?
Yes, he'd have to. Tommy is a gentleman. And if he was pushed in the corner, he'd have to tell it like it is.
If he was pushed in the corner.
I mean, if he was asked, there wouldn't be no reason for him volunteering something. You don't want.
Well, if I were to pick up the phone on the air live one morning, call him and ask him that just straight out, what would that do to his career?
It would get him fired.
Well, he's got to be crazy if
he would be. But I tell you, a lot of people. There's some few real people left yet. I'll tell you like it is. If I get hit in the nose after I get out of your station out here,
But you don't have a wrestling job, so all you've got to lose is your nose.
That's
or something.
all, and it's been hit a lot of times by a lot of good men, and I'm still walking. And I still say that to be a good wrestler, you got to be in shape. In the first place, you got to have the guts, which is guts, condition, and ability. And there's a shortage on all of them right now. There's a real shortage on all three of those things right now. And it's not how good a wrestler you are. It's who you are, who you're kin to, who your mother works, and whether she's running the office or not, and whether you're supposed to hurt him or not. And one of the boys got hit in the mouth last year, and the boy was fired.
All right, Mario, I've got to cut you off because we're completely out. We're out of time. We've got to go.
Don't cuss the boys. Just do exactly what they're told. Don't cuss the boys and the referees. Cuss the promoters.
Okay. That's been it for today. This is George Lapidus trying to get Mike